and welcome to another episode in the Creator series. And today I'm going to run by a couple of situations that you may have encountered in your work as an artist or as a content creator, and uh, um, and just see what how we can improve on it. And the situations are um, working with a standardized content planning, or working with the whole concept of content planning, which is not popular with creatives, and for very good reasons. And yet I do think that this system has something to offer where you will avoid the pitfalls of regular content planning and reap its benefits. And the other thing is a situation where you have something that has a very long runtime and how you can improve on that. So this is the system where I plan my content. The dollhouse represents 1 week, and I often compare it to a tour manager, a very modern tour manager who only plans 1 week ahead for his band. So this is the Tourmanager Daddy, and let's just start there. Let's just start with that idea of a tour and of how this modern tour manager has solved the problem of planning a tour, because it really illustrates what we are up against when we plan for bigger pieces of content, like a tour that takes a long time to prepare. So regular tours are so we're talking about a rock tour for a band. A regular tour, I think it would start like 12 to 18 months before the first concert in planning. So that means that if you have this if this represents 1 week, if this represents 1 week, and this big troll is the tour, then the tour is selected. It is decided, okay, we're going on tour, really big tour, really big troll. Then it means that this troll goes to the floor of ready. It means that, okay, we're going to get our team together in order to plan a tour. This is something we really want. Okay, it's on the floor of ready. The team is ready. They pick up the work of planning the tour, start making calls, and that is when the troll, the big tour, goes onto the floor of doing. And here is where the troll stays for 12 to 18 months. So the tour is all set up. Then everything is done. So all the venues are scheduled. The logistics are all organized. And then after 12 to 18 months, the concerts start. So the tour starts. It comes onto the balcony with the first concert, and it stays there for 6 months, tour of 6 months. Now, instead of this way of presenting a tour or organizing a tour, our very modern tour manager has said, we're not going to do that anymore. I'm just going to sit at my desk on Monday and see what do we have available next week, which venues are available. Then from all the venues that are available, the tour manager selects 4, puts it on on noon on Monday. Tour manager's like, okay, these 4 are gonna do it. I'm gonna choose for these 4. So he puts the 4 concerts on the floor of ready, in the room of ready. So here we have the 4 trolls, the 4 concerts that the band is gonna give next week. They're here, and the tour manager starts making calls, starts arranging all the logistics. These 4 trolls are all going into doing, where they will stay the rest of the week. Everything will be um, organized, and tickets will go on sale and stuff like that. And then on Friday, everything is in the works. Everything is done. They're in the Dome of Dun. They're in the attic of the dollhouse, which is the Dome of Dun. So they're all ready. And then on Monday, the first concert is given. So here it is, the Troll. In the first city, what do we have? New York. New York. On Tuesday, Niagara Falls. On Wednesday, Washington. And on Friday, they have time for something else. So it's like, I don't know, Orlando. So, so here they have these 4 concerts. So within 14 days, 4 concerts are realized. And then for another 14 days or something, the whole process starts again. So when we have a very big project, say that we have a book, the same thing applies. We could say, okay, we want to write this book. We'll do it here on the room already. Then we start writing it. It's for 12 to 18 months. It's here on the floor of doing. And then here, after 12 to 18 months, it's done. It's at the publisher and all the PR has been taken care of. And then there's this really big book launch and the big book is available. But just like with the tour, it means that we have this troll for 12 to 18 months in this dollhouse going through the planning, and the public, the audience cannot connect to it. The organization or the author doesn't get any money out of it. It doesn't get more, they don't get more followers. It's just kind of like, it's a big leap of faith. It's a big investment before you finally have that troll here. And maybe by the time you have that troll, that book, that tour here, I don't know, it's COVID and the tour cannot pursue or cannot take place. Or maybe people have lost interest for the story or the book series, and they no longer want a book. Whereas if you would have created, I don't know, just like a tour manager, maybe if you had created 4 small books and you had released one in winter 2026, one 2.5 months later in spring, and one in summer, and one in autumn, then maybe by Christmas 2026, when you would already have the the pleasure and income of those 4 little books, and you could also bundle it all up, and you could have your big book in the shelves in the stores by Christmas as well, or in spring 2027. So it's this system is really urging you to break up really big projects into smaller projects that deliver value for the reader or for your audience sooner, but also deliver you value sooner. So this can be financial. If you have a big book and you break it up into 4 small books, that can be financial, but that can also be artistic. So you could say, those 4 little books already are 4 pieces of art instead of just 1 piece of art of 1 big book. So that's one of the things that this system does. It creates value by inviting you to break up bigger bigger trolls, one big tour, one big book, into smaller, what's called increments. So the smaller increments deliver value sooner. So you bring the value delivery from 12 to 18 months to sooner, earlier. Okay, the other thing that you may have heard of is content planning, which is like, even if I just say the word, it's like, that is because content planning is usually created from the perspective of what do we want to have on the balcony. And then from a very slim or a small-minded perspective of what raises money or how do we run our business. So it's usually the creative element that is missing in regular content planning. Regular content planning is not what has the most creative value, it's what has the most financial value or what makes the biggest impact, and not what has the biggest artistic value, or what does the artist want to make. So what this system does is it's not about what creates value in the narrow sense of the word. It's you, or Daddy, the tour manager, decides what creates value. So it becomes much broader. So in the sense of um, the content planning, you could say, okay, instead of saying, okay, what are 3 posts every week that will drive sales, you can say, what are 3 posts every week that have the highest artistic impact? What are 3 posts every week that have borderline disruptive, rebellious quality to them? You can, a tour manager, and you are your internal tour manager, you decide what you're going to create. You decide what is created. You can decide for these 3 pieces that are created to have the biggest creative value. You can decide that they are what you want to create that week. You can say, I'm giving myself permission 3 times a week to come up with stuff from like the deepest layers of my being, and that's what I'm going to create. Content planning, very much, we think about content planning as in that it's limiting our space to move as a creative or as an artist. But you can very easily use the concept of content planning to create your best work. It's just that then you have to mark that as your goal, and you have to see that value as the most important one. So so it is actually a very rich system that you can use for your own creative purpose, and you're not limited to seeing yourself as some kind of workhorse, producing things here on your content balcony that are created for success in a traditional sense. You decide what gets to be valued, and so that's another one. Okay, I have to admit that this is the 3rd or the 4th time that I made this video, so I don't know what if the previous thing, if I said everything I wanted to say, but it does bring me to the final way of creating things that you may have encountered, or the final reason that you may have heard not to content plan because it's stupid or silly or unsatisfying, and that is the idea of making videos like these. Like I just said, this is the third or the fourth time that I'm recording it. And that really brings me to why this system is in favor of creating these more difficult pieces of content, and why I can create it, because I have this system. So this is a troll that is a little bit larger than the regular one. Now, what happened when, or this is even a better one. So what happened when I didn't have this system? I did make videos, but because they were a little bit more, they were more difficult to create. There was a lot more uncertainty. I was depending on the light, the daylight, stuff like that. They were bigger, not just in hours, but in complexity. They were bigger than my blog posts, which were smaller, which were easier to create, and they never ever failed. So they were a sure bet, whereas making a video was a risk. Now, if you are a content creator who goes with the idea of, I'm an artist, I just want to make whatever I want to make, that means that you can create these smaller trolls. You can create blog posts. You can create small stuff for social media. And you say, oh, I wake up in the morning and I'm like, oh, I want to make that troll with the blue hair. Okay, I'm picking it, and 10 minutes later with a cup of coffee, you're behind your computer and you're making it. And by 10 a.m. it's in the dome of done. And at 10:10, it's on your social media feed, and you have had that whole troll going from picking it from, when you were still in a bathing robe and you were like inspired for the troll with the bluer hair, and in a couple of hours you took it all the way to the balcony. It's posted. That's great, and that looks ideal, and this is actually how I worked for years. But there were two problems with this, and one is that sometimes this troll turned out to be, well, almost as big as this troll. But like, they were like an 8-hour, they turned out to be, if it was a topic, if I was writing about a topic that I was still investigating, that I didn't quite had made up my mind about, this blog post could turn from being 2 hours to write or 90 minutes to write to being the whole day. And I've even lost whole days because I couldn't kind of like get to the point. I couldn't understand what the conclusion should be. So from a content perspective, the whole day was wasted. So I could start with this small troll with the blue hair, but the way of working did include the risk that it may turn out to be a very big troll. It may turn out to be a troll that was so big that I could handle it, and I wouldn't have any content for that day. So those were the that was the downside of working this way. That sometimes you can pick one of these trolls thinking it's a small one and that you can do it, and then it would turn out into this really big thing that would end up being unused. And the second problem was that I also still wanted to make things that were bigger, the bigger trolls. And I was never inspired to pick those up in that same way, because they required more preparation. They required sometimes, daylight, or to get dressed in a different way, stuff like that. So I was never inspired that way. But also, it didn't really fit into that working schedule, because if you have like a video that takes hours to create, then it really means that you need to be more careful with your time. You need to be more intentional with your way of working. So the first 9 years that I made videos, it was like I made one video and then it would just fall flat for 4 weeks or something, because that one video, it would take one day, or sometimes it would take I would make it would take the day, and then I wouldn't like it, so I would throw it away. And the new way of planning your content allows for way more intention around it, and it makes these bigger trolls, which are more difficult to create and which are more valuable, and the investment is bigger, it really increases the chances that you will succeed. So I really hear the biggest and the best argument, or the best reason I have heard to to not want to plan your content is because, no, I just want to pick up the troll, pick up the idea that speaks to me that day, move it through the dollhouse, and at 10:10 in the morning I want to post it. That works great for small pieces of content, small pieces of art that you fully master, and you could be doing, like, if I wake you up at 2 a.m., you could still do it. That works great for those pieces of content, but the pieces of content that are more complicated and that require more of you, they can only be done if you start being more intentional with your content. So one of the things that you could do is to and how you could benefit from content planning and still allowing yourself to pick up the blue troll in the morning with your bathing robe still on, and move that through the house, is to select in your body of work, in your routines, in your creative process, select those bigger trolls, select those pieces of content, pieces of art that take you 5 hours, or that frequently fail, or that you don't get around to because they are outside of your the amount of time that you can easily free up. And to start planning your content with those bigger trolls. So that means, instead of planning your whole content, which may contain a large number of small blue hair trolls that you can very easily fit into your schedule, you say, okay, I want to make one video every 2 weeks. You pick, that's what I want to do, and you put that troll here, and you can say, okay, I'm gonna create it, and I make sure that it's ready for, I don't know, like the Wednesday that I want to post it. Or you can say, I'm going to smooth out the workload over 2 weeks. That 1 week I do the preparation and I make the video, and the other week I do the post-production and I schedule it. So you can you can really choose that. So that's really how I would, what my suggestion would be. Like, if you're one of those creators who can create very easily, and who's like, why would I want to do that? Why would I want to plan what's on the balcony? I'm saying, okay, if you're doing fine, then you're doing fine. But which parts of your artistic work are not coming into fruition because you are currently limited to the impulsive flow-based way of creation, which are the things that you would like to create, and that just don't fit into that way of working. So there is, of course, the risk that maybe you're just not, and that's still something that I'm grappling with. Like, should I just stop making videos? Should I just say I'm a writer and these pieces of content cost me, this one will cost me probably 4 hours. I could write a lot of blog posts in 4 hours, you know. So there is definitely, you know, if you're one of those blue-haired trolls creators, meaning in the morning you just pick up your blue-haired troll and you write it or you create it and then it's ready. There is definitely the risk of you investing time and probably years, just like I am, into an art form that ultimately does not fit your creative rhythm. And yeah, so there's definitely a payoff. So I don't know, but if you're like me and if you're like, yeah, that is actually true, I do have bigger pieces of content that require planning. And I'm like, okay, how about you start planning those bigger pieces of content that do not, that will not get done if you just keep it at your flow-based way of working. Okay, so that was it for today. I also have finally created a way to work with me if you want to work with me to, you know, to plan your content and to plan the production of it, basically. So it's in the description box below as of today. And yeah, I'll see you in 2 weeks with the next video for the creator series. See you then. Bye.